that it was Pond Sunday. A scientist wanted to learn about the leaping abilities of frogs. To do so, he placed a frog on his laboratory table, stood behind the frog, and shouted, "Jump, frog, jump!" The frog jumped. The scientist carefully measured the distance of that first leap. He consistently repeated this procedure a number of times to provide reliable and valid statistics. Then he surgically removed one of the front legs of the frog. Placing the frog on the table, the scientist once again yelled, "Jump, frog, jump!" Again, responding to the noise, the frog leaped forward and the scientist carefully measured the distance. The scientist had the frog jump with 3 legs a number of times to gather his specific data. Then he surgically removed another leg of the frog and repeated the experiment. He repeated each step of the experiment, measuring the ability of the frog to jump with 4, then 3, then 2, and then 1 leg. Finally, the scientist cut off the last leg and placed the frog on the table. The scientist stood behind the frog and yelled, "Jump, frog, jump!" Not surprising, the frog did not leap. The scientist yelled again, but there was no response. The scientist finally stomped his feet, he clapped his hands, and he yelled as loud as he could. But still, the frog did not move. The scientist reflected on what he had seen and contemplated the meaning of this experiment. Finally, he sat up straight in his chair with an excited expression on his face, disclosed a discovery of new scientific insight. He walked over to his data book and he wrote, "Frogs without legs can't hear." Ducky, ducky. In today's gospel text, there are so many things that we can learn from. This text is a complete story filled with emotions, filled with doubt, grieving, empowerment, and new life. During this text, Jesus does not jump up and go to Lazarus right away. He says that his illness is for the glory of God, and that the Son of God is glorified through it. Very prophetic in his words, Jesus has this great vision to show many people the greatness of his life. The last 3 words of today's text say, they believed in him. I wonder what the people were thinking when Jesus told them to take away the stone. Martha was probably wondering why Jesus needed to see Lazarus, to see that he was dead. The stench was enough to prove that. But Jesus does not have this in mind. He calls for the stone to be removed for a different reason. And reading this text, I was focused on these words. Not why Jesus didn't go when he went. Not what Jesus had in mind for Lazarus. But the whole story comes to a point and is brought together by these words. Take away the stone. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the weight of this stone was, but it seems like Jesus could easily have moved the stone. If he could speak to God and have Lazarus be raised from the dead, he could surely move the stone instead of asking someone to take it away for him. But this is where we're stuck in our thinking. It's the same thinking that Mary and Martha had. This thinking of if only you were here, my brother would not have died. I put myself in the position of Jesus and think, why don't these people get it? It's the same thing the scientist wrote in that report. If only the frog was able to hear, it would jump. This is where we find ourselves in our church today. You see, the scientists saw a frog's body, saw that it had a frog head, saw that it had a frog torso, so it must be able to jump. But we all know that without legs, a frog cannot jump, don't we? I take the story and the analogy that I'm going to make from the book, Frogs Without Legs Can't Hear, by Paul Hill and David Anderson. In this book, they tell a ridiculous story about a scientist and a frog. They go even further to make another analogy. They talk about the church being like a frog also. The frog's head is the leadership in the church. The torso of the frog is the body of the church, the people who are the visible community. The authors go on to say that it should be able to jump and move in the world. The church has seemed to miss the point that to be mobile in this world and therefore impact the larger world, the church frog needs church frog legs. Jesus doesn't ask for someone to move the stone because he cannot. He asks to tell the believers of him to have faith in him, to open up the tomb of Lazarus so that he can walk out and have new life, to spend time with his two sisters, to spend time with his family. Pretty sure that day changed for Lazarus. And I bet he had a different outlook on life after the people took the cloth from his head, and the cloth from his hands, and the cloth from his feet. The questions of if only were replaced by the faith and the praise of Jesus. The home of Mary and of Martha and of Lazarus was full of faith. The faith in the home that are the legs of the church frog, that are so beneficial for our church and for our homes. This stone that we have to move, this is the stone. The stone Jesus asks you to move, not just today, but the other 6 days also. You may be thinking, wow, this is a tall order. This is a lot easier said than done. But it is the essence of Emmanuel, God with us. We are the members of this body. Some of you know that my bachelor's degree was in youth and family ministry from Bethany College. In working more with the youth groups and education programs here at Emmanuel, there is a very large and heavy stone that we need to move. We're in a very unique position here at Emmanuel, a position that we can grow and flourish and have a youth and family ministry program out of this world. I'm very excited about the possibilities that we have. I recently looked at a list of youth in our congregation. I see something that is very positive and encouraging to me. Between the grades of 7 and 12, we have 56 youth. There's so much potential for this ministry to grow bigger. And like the stone that was in front of the tomb of Lazarus, it will not be an easy job. Built around faith, we build up our church, and we grow in the love and the grace of Jesus. During the season of Lent, We are called to reflect on ourselves, on our church, on our community, in our homes. We reflect on the awesome opportunities that we have with the youth of Emanuel. We grow as we become the church frog legs. As we grow in faith and love, we give ourselves to the tremendous power that the cross has in our lives. As we grow in excitement in the coming weeks to the resurrection of our Lord, we celebrate with the new life that Lazarus has. We look on the life and the relationships with his family, and we celebrate the many gifts that our youth bring to us at Emanuel. We are excited about what is to come. And with Jesus calling us to move the stone, we share the love of Christ that we put at the center of our church, that we put at the center of our homes, that we put at the center of our lives. Don't we?